Okay, where do you want to start today, folks? We've got two things. We've got fireworks that just happened up there on Capitol Hill. We got Rod Rosenstein, or I don't know how he pronounces the last name. I've heard it both ways, so if I get it wrong, it's unintentional. So Rosenstein from the Deputy AG and Christopher Wray, the FBI director, didn't answer a single question, and there were fireworks. Trey Gowdy read him the Riot Act, and Jim Jordan from Ohio read him the Riot Act. And we have the audio sound bites of that all coming up. We have the predicted, and it frankly wasn't hard. I mean, I would love to take credit for brilliance on this, but a sand flea could have predicted what the Democrats and the media were going to do in reaction to the retirement announcement of Justice Kennedy. Of course, Trump has thrown gasoline on all this by saying, I'm honored that Kennedy said he felt comfortable enough to retire with me as president. That has just sent them into orbit. We got all kinds of great stuff coming up here today, folks. Great to have you with us. The telephone number is 800-282-2882 and the email address, elrushbo@eibnet.us. I want to start. You probably think I'm going to start with my prediction from yesterday, and I'm not, because it's coming very soon. I want to talk about something a little bit more overarching than that. What happened yesterday that has caused a meltdown all over the left? Jeffrey Toobin was on CNN. Oh, no. Roe versus Wade is doomed. Oh, my God. Babies are going to live. Oh, no. What can cause this? Well, that's what happens. If a baby's not aborted, it lives. I'm sorry if this is offensive. Take it up with God, not me. I got nothing to do with it. But if a baby's not aborted, it lives, and there's Jeffrey Toobin. Oh, no, Roe versus Wade is doomed. An 82-year-old judge. One man. We have a population of 300-some-odd million, and one 82-year-old, could have been 32, doesn't matter. I'm just giving you the factual content here, has announced that he is retiring and heading off to that great cloakroom wherever he goes after he retires. And look at the absolute meltdown that has taken place over a single individual saying he's leaving. Now, what can possibly justify this kind of meltdown? We have three branches of government. We have the legislative, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. You'd be amazed at how many people think that the branches of government are president and vice president and speaker of the House. It's a shame. But we have the legislative, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. And they are co-equal. And it's been set up as founded that they battle for power. And the battle for power is supposed to slow things down. Change is supposed to occur at a snail's pace in this country, as designed by our brilliant founders, for the express purpose of taking emotional reactions out of everything. But yet that's all we're dealing with now. The left is entirely gone every day. How much of emotion is left in their reservoir? Do you realize every day is a panic and a crisis to everybody on the left? Every day. So now an 82-year-old guy, Justice Anthony Kennedy, has said, did you see this, a Comedy Central writer who said he wished Judge Kennedy had been shot instead of President Kennedy and instead of Robert Kennedy? Comedy said, this is a comedy network. This is where you tune in to laugh. And you tune in and some loco weed. Yeah, I wish Anthony Kennedy had been the one shot instead of John Kennedy. What? You want to throw out all the great rulings you got from Anthony Kennedy? How these people can even marshal 30% of support from people in this country is beyond me now. It's not that if it doesn't appear. A lot of people watch Comedy Central. People tuning in to watch it. How in the world do you not blanch at that? Just the stupidity of it, much less the coarseness. They call Trump uncivil, and they say Trump is dangerous to our discourse and so forth. So back to the three branches: the executive, legislative, and executive. And if I were a member of Congress today, if I were in the House and Senate, and one judge announces he's quitting, and everybody acts like it's the end of whatever they believe in, I'd be asking myself, well, what am I, chopped liver here? Is the Congress chopped liver? Is everything deferred to the Supreme Court? And yes, it is. And the reason for that is the left. I mean, you could go back to Marbury versus Madison, where the Supreme Court said, you know what, we are going to decide what's constitutional or not. Or you could go back to Earl Warren and his court 60 years ago, where they affirmed that they were going to sit in judgment they were going to be the final authority. This was never what the Supreme Court was intended to be, the final authority. But the left insisted on it because the judiciary is their backup for losing elections. Why should a Supreme Court justice, how has it happened the Supreme One is so powerful when all they are supposed to do is to decide the law, whether a law is constitutional, whether the cases that come before them, they decide cases, and not every one of them is a constitutional case. But we have invested in the Supreme Court as the final authority. But the left did that. When the Supreme Court trends to not giving them the final result they want, you think they're just going to sit there and accept it? They don't accept anywhere else in our society where they lose. You think they're just going to sit there and accept if they lose at the Supreme Court? That's not who they are. They will continue to agitate and try for more and more upheaval. But what it really means is that the executive branch, legislative branch, have kind of ceded power. They've let it happen. They've let it happen. And 9 people in robes have the final authority on all of it when they're not supposed to do that because they're not elected. They're not representatives of the people. They're appointed by the president, confirmed by the people of the Senate, and so forth, but they are not elected, and therefore they have no direct link to the people. And our country is a representative republic, and the people that we elect to the House and the Senate are there to represent us. I know they're supposed to be, judges are supposed to be totally free of bias and all that. Of course, that's a myth as well. I find it fascinating to watch the reaction when one judge decides to retire and what it says about what has happened to our country and where it's. Look at this tweet from Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman. Why do we even care what Morgan Freeman says? Well, because he's played God in movies. And that's why. And because Morgan Freeman is perceived to be a person, because of the way he looks, to be authoritative and fair and brilliant and smart. Well, let me ask you. There's a tweet here. It's days like this from yesterday's. Days like today where I am infuriated the Democrat National Committee rigged its nomination for Hillary Clinton. Wait, what? They know this happened. They know that Hillary didn't win over Crazy Bernie fairly. They know that the DNC rigged and they're mad at Trump. And they're mad at the Russians. They know that there was collusion. Amazing. His tweet continues, Bernie had the momentum, Bernie had the message, but forcing Hillary because it was her turn might be the biggest mistake of our lives. Wait a minute. It's now understandable that Trump won? It now makes sense that Trump won? Morgan Freeman, who has played God in movies, is suggesting to us that they knew all along that Hillary was bad news, and that it's not a big surprise that Trump won because Hillary is such bad news. And because Hillary was such bad news and got defeated by Trump, that's why Kennedy's retiring. Judge Napolitano, the human Eddie Munster, Judge Knapp's Fox News says that the late Justice Antonin Scalia told him that Kennedy told Scalia that he wasn't going to retire until there was a Republican president. Okay, we have a Republican president. Kennedy is retiring. He must be okay with Trump. That's got him spinning in tops as well. And it is, I have to tell you, it's fun to watch this, frankly. I mean, I've gotten a little bit beyond where this stuff irritates. I mean, it does. But I now see the humor in a lot of this, because we're dealing with closed-minded, sheer stupidity. Yeah, Comedy Central writer, I wish Justice Kennedy had been shot instead of JFK or Robert. What's this clown's name? Curtis Cook, a Los Angeles-based writer for Comedy Central. You think they're rethinking like, is this funny? Oh, and Trevor Noah, who also works there, he had something crazy to say. In some ways, it feels like all hope is dead. So you're tuning into the Comedy Central network to watch what you think is Jon Stewart. He got out of there long ago. He could see what's coming. His replacement, where you go to laugh, has just told you that all hope is dead. Why? Because a judge retired. So the investment they have made in the Supreme Court becoming the final arbiter, it was always destined to come back and bite them. It's going to come back and bite everybody on both sides, depending on rulings. And Dan Rather also tweeted out. Now, Dan Rather, of course, is a newsman. He was the anchor for CBS Evening News after Walter Klondike retired. And Dan Rather eventually had to retire himself because he got caught making up the news about George W. Bush and the National Guards. I mean, he actually used forged documents. His excuse, well, maybe the documents are forged, but the story is accurate. Right. My source material may be fake, but the story is real. Anyway, they get rid of Rather at CBS. They've got no choice. Peter Jennings and Tom Brokaw, immediately recognizing the potential danger here to all of journalism, create a new award, the Lifetime Award for Great News Present, or some such thing, and they have a big dinner, and they give Rather the award to save liberalism and to save the news business. So Rather tweeted yesterday afternoon, Justice Kennedy retiring. If you're deeply disturbed, absorb the shock, but respond with even more determination. If you see this as a fight for the future of democracy, let those in power know that the will of the majority can still hold sway. Earth to Dan, this is the majority holding sway. Trump won the election. The Republicans won the House. The Republicans won the Senate. They get to choose because they are the majority. Just like people have forgotten. I think Obama nominated Elena Kagan, perhaps one of the least qualified people to sit on any court, much less the Supreme Court. He nominated her during the year of a midterm election. And nobody said he shouldn't have been able to do it. Nobody said he should have to wait till after the election. When Obama nominated somebody to the court, most people said, Okay, first African-American president, whatever you want, you can have it. We're not racist. And that's how much of the Obama years happened. There was no opposition to it. Now, I have a question for Dan Rather. If you're deeply disturbed, absorb the shock. Can you tell them how to do it, Dan? Because it doesn't look like they know. Morgan Freeman is not absorbing the shock. The Comedy Central guy who wishes that Anthony Kennedy had been shot instead of President Kennedy, I think they're having trouble absorbing the shock. You've been through this, Dan. How do they do it? Second thing is, respond with even more determination. What's that? What, will you explain this? Respond with more determination to do what? What does that look like, Dan? What does responding with more determination look like? I mean, just asking, what would it be? What are these people not doing that Dan thinks they need to do? Well, they're not absorbing the shock. And I don't know how they could be more determined. Competent and qualified to figure all this out and to oppose it's another thing, but I think they are determined. So there's that. And my prediction yesterday has already come true. It came true much as I thought it would before the end of the day yesterday, and it has come true over and over and over again throughout the drive-by media. So we'll have the audio evidence of all of that coming up when we get back.
America's most listened to talk radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, the courts have been invested with the Supreme Court particularly, but not just them, the appellate courts obviously, but the entire judiciary. It is not insignificant. It's not a throwaway line to say that the left, the Democrats, have sought to use the judiciary as insurance, if you will, for losing elections. And we've documented the evidence of this over the many years of service of the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. But the retirement of Anthony Kennedy and the opportunity here now to replace him with a Trump-appointed judge. I'll tell you what's happening. I think, as I mentioned yesterday, these Supreme Court decisions this week are clawing back freedom, individual liberty and freedom for the people, and reasserting the primacy of the Constitution. What really worries the left here is that what Trump is doing is not only he's changing everything up in terms of the way the established order has run, from our relationship with allies like NATO and the foreign trade deals like NAFTA. He's turning that upside down. He is now, I think, attempting here with the court and his judicial nominations. I think that there is, for lack of a better term, a clawback now that the Trump administration and Trump personally are trying to reverse this decades and decades of leftist judges, such as those that stopped his travel ban and so forth. It's a long process. This is not something Trump is going to be able to complete himself. But I think one of the reasons for the panic on the part of the left is that once the Supreme Court no longer becomes their backstop, once the Supreme Court is not the final authority for their victories, they are going to be in abject panic. Where do they go? It's kind of like when the United States, if it were to ever lose freedom, where in the world do you move to for freedom? We're the last great hope for all this stuff. The Supreme Court, the last great hope for the left, and if that is removed from their control, we're not safe. And we welcome back to the bumper rotation the Funk Brothers, and you got to make sure you pronounce that N if you're going to say that on the radio. The Funk Brothers, the Motown backup group. By the way, a correction. It turns out that this tweet, it's days like today where I'm infuriated that Democrats rigged the nomination for Hillary. Bernie had a momentum, Bernie had the message, but forcing Hillary because it was her turn might be the biggest mistake of our lives. It's a different Morgan Freeman. It's not Morgan Freeman, the actor. Coco, up at the website, went to find the tweet to be able to link to it and found out it's some loco weed that likes Colin Kaepernick. Morgan J. Freeman. Not, and it is even his... Not the Me Too actor, not the guy that played God. No, it's not the actor. In fact, this Morgan Freeman is African American, which, of course, the strike against him, being a Democrat, white privilege and all. Ask Joe Crowley about that. Does it feel like? Does what feel like? Are you? Mr. Snerdley is asking these last. Does it feel like winning? Well, cautiously, yeah, it feels like. Of course, it does. These are huge decisions. Are you telling me this doesn't feel like winning to you? Snerdley, I'll tell you what's nagging at you. Snerdley, does it feel like winning to you? Yeah, it is. There's no question this is winning. The union case, there's no question. The Kennedy retirement, we won't know if this is a win until we see who Trump nominates, until the guy gets confirmed. Some of the other things, but Snerdley is something is gnawing at me. I've had a lot of emails from people. We even had a call yesterday from somebody who's worried. What if Mueller comes in and says that Trump and Putin conspired and has evidence of it? Do you realize, Russia, it's all over? Is that something you're worried about, Mr. Snerdley? That Mueller's got something? I think a little bit of that too. Well, I think if you are feeling restrained in your celebratory nature here, it's simple. All right, fine, stay that way. I think all you're reacting to is a lifetime of us taking it on the chin no matter what happens. You're so used to us losing. You're so used to feeling really good about something, and then the left pulls a sneak attack from out of nowhere that nullifies it all. You're reacting to a bunch of conditioning. But I think you need to temper that with the fact that this is not your average Republican president. This is all new. This kind of stuff has not happened before in our lifetimes. Closest to it is Ronaldus Magnus. Do you know that even Ronald Reagan at no point in his presidency had a approval rating as high as 90% of all Republicans? Donald Trump does. At no point during the Reagan presidency did 70% of the American people say they think the news is literally made up. So I think feeling restrained and not wanting to let go and act like celebrating here is, A, it's wise because these are temporary steps along the way, but it's also the result of a lifetime of doing that and then having to dial it back because something's come along, a Republican is betrayed or any number of things. But, yeah, I'm feeling really, really good about all this. These Supreme Court decisions this week, I'll tell you why I feel good about those. I think in each of these 5-4 decisions, as I said yesterday, I think the court is reestablishing the primacy of the Constitution, not Donald Trump. All of these judges that have issued these executive orders trying to stop Trump's lawful, or these stays of execution, not execute. Well, yeah, it could be that, but they've stayed Trump's executive orders, and the court's basically telling him, you don't have the power to do this. A single federal judge cannot stop a lawful executive order of the president. So the court here is standing up for the Constitution. That's a positive thing whenever that happens. But I don't think you can take Trump out of the equation. So we'll see what other people have to say about it on the what is there something specific in this that's making you feel less than celebratory about this? Or is it just an overall feeling of unease? I'm not answering. So feeling uneasy about it. I think it's just conditioning. I think it's habitual. I think it's what you're used to. You know, it's driven by, it's your intelligence guided by experience that is wisely causing you to restrain yourself until something actually is etched in stone. Well, these court decisions are. Look, let's move on with my prediction yesterday. Let's replay it. Shortly after the Kennedy retirement was announced, I predicted this. I think you can make book on the fact that the Democrats and the drive-bys are going to argue that Trump cannot be permitted to nominate a Supreme Court justice until we hear from Bob Mueller. Until Trump is cleared of all wrongdoing, he should not be permitted to name a Supreme Court justice, because it's entirely possible, they will say, that Trump is going to be indicted for colluding with Putin to steal the election from Hillary, making any Supreme Court nomination illegitimate and illegal. Make book on it. Some variation of that is going to be stated, is going to be uttered by somebody out there on the left. It didn't take long for your host to be proven correct. The first example of it is a Breitbart story. The headline, Will and Grace star Deborah Messing after Justice Kennedy retirement. Get ready, the fight is on. And then she said, we must vote, we must make calls, knock on doors, help candidates who are looking to flip seats. We must call our members of Congress and tell them that every Democrat must refuse to hold a hearing for Trump's nominee until after the Russia probe is concluded. Now, I know she's an actress, but it still happened. She's a leftist, and it was stated exactly as I knew it would be. Audio sound bites. We have a montage of drive-by media specialists coming out of the woodwork saying that Trump should not get a nomination to the court until the Mueller impeachment is over.
2 words, Robert Mueller. This president making this nomination, by the way, is under investigation.
The Supreme Court may have a role in the Mueller investigation. Stay tuned.
Let's say Mueller has new things that come out.
Whatever Robert Mueller finds will eventually find its way to the Supreme Court. And that is going to be another factor here.
A subpoena case is very likely involving Donald Trump to go to the United States Supreme Court.
The president is under a cloud. A president who is under investigation. We should pause for that reason.
My, now, but how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. 6 of them basically came out and confirmed my prediction. Some of them even going so far as to say that Mueller's going to come out, he's going to indict Trump, and it's all going to end up in the Supreme Court. We can't have Trump-appointed judges up there deciding that's a conflict, except for the fact that Gorsuch is already there. Then this morning on CBS This Morning, Norah O'Donnell announced breaking news about Trump's upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin, and she introduced Chief White House Correspondent Major Garrett's report about the summit. She said, we actually have some breaking news coming right now from the White House, which just announced details of the president's upcoming summit with Putin. Major Garrett at the White House with details, and everybody is on the seat of their pants for this.
2 key details, Nora. July 16th, the announcement coming in coordination, this White House and the Kremlin, hitting send, if you will, on the paper statement, simultaneously announcing it to the world.
Collusion. Trump and Putin colluded to have a summit. Breaking news, CBS. Trump and Putin hit the send button at the same time. Collusion to have a summit. Could there be any other reason for this collusion, for this summit, than to dissuade everybody that there was prior collusion on the election? This is what they're all thinking. While you digest all that, we take another obscene profit timeout. Your phone calls are coming up pretty soon, too. So sticking with the audio soundbites here for a second. When there is a new Supreme Court pick, it obviously makes sense. Somewhere in the drive-by media, there will be an analysis of what America's real anchorman, me, has to say about it. This happened last night on the Fox News channel with Shannon Bream, who, to her credit, uses a lot of audio from this program. I just have to observe that. I've noticed it, and we are appreciative. Anyway, this was in the segment she introduced and played a clip of me talking about the impact of the primary elections and Kennedy's retirement, coming midterm elections all rolled into one.
Conservatives like Rush Limbaugh think this tilts in the president's favor.
So let's review. Supreme Court has been clawing back freedom for the American people at breakneck speed. Close calls, but it doesn't matter. A win is a win at the court. Trump-endorsed candidates winning on the Republican side. Bernie Sanders, socialist communists winning in key places on the Democrat side. And that's good for us because communist socialists are nowhere near the majority of the country. Now, they are Democrats, and they're going to get some additional Democrat votes, but this is going to split the Democrat Party. Mark my words going forward. And whenever you see the media start writing about unease and upset in the Democrat Party, understand that it's much worse than even they are writing. They don't want to write about that stuff at all. But they are. And Pelosi, she had a funny reaction. She had a press conference yesterday, and she was asked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ousting her waiting in second command to become Speaker Joe Crowley. And Pelosi, yes, it's a young girl. It's just one district doesn't mean anything. Don't lose your minds here. You got to keep everything in perspective. It's just one seat. It really doesn't matter. We're Democrats. We're all in this together. It doesn't matter. She got really, really frustrated over this. Do you know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez only had one story about her campaign in the New York Times? The New York Times totally missed the existence of this woman. And you know how we know this? Because the former executive editor of this place, Jill Abramson, has just written a scathing piece about the Times, about how they're getting lazy and they're missing everything and they're letting a bunch of things go. And what she means is they're not noticing enough what the communists in America are doing. Well, that's what it is. I mean, they're all over the collusion story and they're all over the obstruction story, but they missed this. They really missed this whole... I mean, the polling data had this clown Crowley up by 15 points. They missed her candidacy. They weren't even thrilled about it, and it's in their backyard. Queens, it's in their backyard, and they missed it. They had one story about this. Now this woman, by the way, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is saying, yeah, but I want to be el presidente. She's going to be president. She says, that's what this is all about. Pelosi, this one little seat, it doesn't matter. We have all demographics. We have all ages. We have all kinds of mixtures here in our party. You're making a big deal over nothing. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, when she hears that, a big deal about nothing, believe me, the Democrats are headed for some rough times ahead. Last night on, let's see, this is a Shannon Bream show. She had Larry O'Connor, who was on WMAL in Washington also, she played the soundbite you just heard of me. And she said, talk about the impact of Kennedy's retirement. Sounds like Mitch McConnell wants to get his replacement confirmed before the fall elections and before the Supreme Court term starts. Who does this motivate to get out and vote? Because if the seat's already locked down, what motivation does the right have to go out and vote?
This is easy. First of all, he absolutely was. I just finished reading Selena Zito's great book, The Great Revolt, and she interviews all of these voters in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, who voted for Barack Obama. And one of the prime reasons they went for Donald Trump, even though they were against him on a lot of the things, was that seat. So I think it's going to motivate those voters.
Right, but the question was, what if, and frankly, I would love to see this, but I wait with bated breath for it. But if Trump's nominee is confirmed before the fall elections, her question was, does this mean Trump voters get what they want and don't show up to vote? Would it be better for Trump to wait until after the election to make the nomination and then start the confirmation hearings? And, that's kind of a toss-up. I don't think so. I think Trump voters are far more sophisticated than any and understanding their importance. I don't think they're traditional. The traditional way of looking at politics, you can't plug Trump into that. Now, one of the traditions is, the party in power, their voters they've already won. They won 2 years ago. They're simply not as excited. They're not as enthused. The out-of-power party, that's the party that you got to look out for. They've got all the energy. They've got all the motivation. In the primaries that have happened, Republicans are showing up in greater numbers than Republicans. But again, that's an old formula that applied for years and years and years when the establishment was running thing and it was establishment candidates. But this is all brand new. And Trump's voters are highly sophisticated, and they understand the need to continue the enthusiasm and the involvement. The idea that Trump voters are going to take an election off because they've run out of... Did you see that rally last night? Where was it? Fargo, South Dakota? I'm going to say it again. There isn't a politician in America who could draw a crowd like that. There's not a politician and can hold a crowd. Those people did not want to leave last night. They wanted Trump to go on and on and on. And if you watched it, you saw Donald Trump include them as he talked about himself and his successes. They were as much a part of it, in his view, as he is. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to take an election off. This is just the Democrats and the drive-bys of political establishment trying to comfort themselves that things are going to start going their way, as they usually always do. But until they understand that this is a whole new dynamic, they're going to continue to be surprised daily over the new things happening in politics that they just think can't happen. Back in a second. No. That's a great point. Folks, I should have made a point about something. When I played the soundbite, all these media people saying, we can't let Trump nominate this court nominee because Mueller and his investigation may end up at the Supreme Court. There's no way the Mueller investigation is going to end up at the Supreme Court, folks. There is no possible way. And these reporters, if they don't know that, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't know that. I'll tell you, I am continually surprised at the level of ignorance among the so-called educated class in Washington, D.C., particularly the media, about how, quote-unquote, our democracy works. So these people, by the way, greetings and welcome back, 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The liberals want the Supreme Court to be ruled by the political beliefs of the justices, not the law. And that's what is being imperiled here with the resignation of Anthony. In fact, change up in the soundbite order. Grab soundbite number 7, just for the fun of it. We have a leaked conference call. Democrat National Committee conference call. Donna Brazile calling others at the DNC to announce the Kennedy retirement. And I want you to hear it. Here it is.
Justice Anthony Kennedy has just announced that he's retiring. All the more reason. Yes, he just announced this. Oh, my God. This is not good news.
As Donna Brazile, oh my God, oh no. So they're panicking out there. But the idea that Mueller's findings would eventually go to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court would have nothing to do with Mueller's findings, would have nothing to do with the House impeachment or any Senate trial. These reporters don't know anything. The Supreme Court and a Trump nominee will have nothing to say about whatever Mueller produces. The way the Mueller report is going to happen, according to regulations, when Mueller finishes his investigation, he will then write the exhaustive report. When Ken Starr did his, it was called the Starr Report. And everybody zeroed in on the Lewinsky section to find out what really happened. It was like reading a smut novel. So this will be the Mueller report. It gets presented to Rosenstein. And then Rosenstein decides what to do with it. Release it to Congress, make it public, what have you. And then, but that's it. Now, if there are indictments, if there are recommendations for indictments, if there's any of that stuff in it, then it's dealt with within the legal system. The Supreme Court never has a thing to say about it unless one of the cases, if there's an indictment, if one of those cases would ever end up on appeal to court, or they would take it. But the Supreme Court will have absolutely nothing to do with what Mueller says. And this is just the media trying to convince people that Trump's not qualified. My prediction, Trump's not qualified to make an appointment. He might be found guilty. We can't have a guy appointing a justice Supreme Court. Why, that justice would be favorably disposed to exonerate Trump. The justice that he nominates will never have a thing to say about any Mueller investigation. They're just trying to do anything they can to get people to support the idea that Trump should not make his nomination. The idea that Trump should delay this nomination until after the midterms is folly. It is absurd, and it's crazy. If the nominee is not confirmed before these midterm elections, then the Democrats are not going to let this nomination be confirmed until the next Congress, if ever. And they haven't forgotten about what happened to Merrick Garland. But the answer to that is exactly what I said. Barack Obama nominated the least qualified person ever to be in a court, Elena Kagan, during a midterm election year, and she was confirmed. And everybody says they love precedent. Well, there you go. I asked this a little bit earlier today. Are liberals immune from the cry wolf syndrome? Does warning fatigue ever set in? These people get a tsunami warning like every other day from their puppet masters in the media, and they go into full panic attack. Do you realize to be a liberal is to be in constant panic mode, such as these people on that Donna Brazil DNC conference call? And every week, it's something new. It's Russia collusion. It's an presidential tweet. Trump got more ice cream at dessert than he gives his guests. Remember that one. Where's Melania? Did you see Melania's jacket? It never ends. Every week, sometimes twice a week, is a brand new tsunami. And this one, the Kennedy retirement, has PTSD potential. Now imagine, Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg is 85. We're talking law of averages here. If they're having this conniption fit over Anthony Kennedy, can you imagine when the day comes? Because, the odds are that Trump is going to get another opening on the court. At what point will their reservoir expire? But more importantly, at what point will an increasing number of the American people grow tired of the tsunamis that they create, the left? I have been expecting that, hoping for that for a long time, and I think we may be at the beginning of even seeing that. Time will tell. Okay, congressional hearing today. A committee, House Judiciary Committee hearing on Justice Department, the report about Hillary Clinton's email investigation, the IG report. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein testified. So did Christopher Wray, the FBI director. And Ron DeSantis, who is running for governor of Florida. We want to start with this. DeSantis asked Rosenstein about his involvement in the investigation.
They talk about the Mueller investigation. It's really the Rosenstein investigation. You appointed Mueller, you're supervising Mueller, and it's supposedly about collusion between Trump's campaign in Russia and obstruction of justice. But you wrote the memo saying that Comey should be fired, and you signed the FISA extension for Carter Page. So my question is to you, it seems like you should be recused from this more so than Jeff Sessions, just because you were involved in making decisions affecting both prongs of this investigation. Why haven't you done that?
Congressman, I can assure you that it were appropriate for me to recuse. I'd be more than happy to do so and let somebody else handle this, but it's my responsibility to do it, and all I can tell you, sir...
Then how do you have obstruction of justice possibility for a president exercising his powers to fire an FBI director that you said should be fired? And, oh, by the way, the IG report makes it clear Jim Comey should have been fired. So why are we still doing this with the Mueller probe?
Sir, I am not commenting on what is under investigation by the Mueller probe, and to the best of my knowledge, neither is Mr. Mueller.
Mr. Mueller is commenting. Mr. Mueller went out there and said that the New York Times and a bunch of people are publishing things that aren't true. Mueller went out there and said that the pre-dawn raid into Manafort's house, they didn't beat down the door and they didn't pick the lock. And he got mad that the New York Times and the media leaked that. BS. Somebody leaked it to him. Mueller's just trying to get his handle on the leaks and make it look like his office has nothing to do with them. But who else would know what happened with that entry into Manafort's house? But DeSantis here is simply, it doesn't matter what Rosenstein's answers were. The question here was designed to get that information out there because those are all legitimate questions. If it was now justifiable to fire Comey, then what the hell is this? Investigating Trump for obstruction for doing it. Now, Rosenstein, I think, is involved. He did not follow Justice Department regulations when he impaneled Mueller. He did not give him a crime to investigate. It was open-ended, and when people figured that out, he came back and wrote a memo and practically backdated it, which then spelled out specific areas for Mueller to investigate, which then includes everywhere Mueller has gone. But I don't think anybody doubts that the purpose of this investigation from the moment it began, before it began, is to get Donald Trump. Up next is Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz, a Republican from Florida, is asking Rosenstein about the FISA warrant.
Did you read the FISA application before you signed it?
I'm not going to comment about any FISA application.
So you won't say to this committee whether or not you even read the document you signed that authorized spying on people associated with the Trump campaign?
Well, I dispute your characterization of what that FISA is about, sir.
Did you read it or did you not read it?
I'll be happy to review. I'll be happy to discuss the details with you. But as I told you, sir.
Did Peter Strzok brief you on it?
No.
Did Lisa Page brief you on it?
No.
Did Sally Moyer brief you on it?
Now, let me explain the process, if I may.
Well, did Tricia Anderson brief you on it?
No FBI personnel briefed me on it. The process, sir, is that these FISA applications and renewals first come up through the FBI chain of command. They are sworn under oath by a career federal agent. We sit down with a team of attorneys from the Department of Justice, all of whom review that, provide a briefing for us about what's in it. And, sir, I've reviewed that one in some detail. And I can tell you, sir, that the information that's public about that doesn't match with my understanding of the one that I signed.
Okay, now this is interesting because what's being discussed here is the Steele dossier, the Golden Shower story. It's a fake story. It's a fake dossier. It was Hillary Clinton opposition research that was passed off as legitimate intelligence collected by intelligence agents all over the world. And that was to give it credibility. And it was used to get a FISA warrant. And what Gaetz is asking here, did you know that? Are you aware that they misled the FISA court? And of course, Rosenstein's not going to say anything in this hearing. Rosenstein's not going to answer anything. And what would the thing these congressmen are up against is, look, I have to continue to remind you, the FBI is refusing to release specific documents requested by congressional committees. The committees are entitled to them. They've been asking for certain things since last August. The committee is being stonewalled by Rosenstein and others in the FBI for the usual, well, it's an ongoing investigation, classified information, it doesn't matter, we're Congress. You're not. We're entitled to see it. One of the things they want to see is, for example, when did you hire these informants and when did you embed them in the Trump campaign? This is something that that Devin Nunes has been seeking for about a month now, and he's being stonewalled at every request. He also wants to know what was the actual beginning of this investigation. We now know that it wasn't the dossier. We now know it wasn't Papadopoulos blabbing about the Russians having Hillary emails. So what was it? Rosenstein, Wray are not answering. Donald Trump could make them answer. Donald Trump could order everything Congress wants released this afternoon. And Rosenstein et al. Could not stop it. I don't know that they would. I mean, they might try to stonewall even Trump, but he could order all of this stuff released. Now, the Trump people say that he's not doing this because it would appear that he is obstructing the investigation, that Trump is ordering the release of information that could be very damaging to him, or it could be exculpatory. So the question that these guys are really asking themselves, and they're asking Rosenstein for the public consumption, what they really want to know is, why is Trump not releasing this stuff? Why is Trump not authorizing it to be released? And we've dealt with that answer. I think Trump has assessed a political advantage to having it appear that he is this lone outsider up against this massive establishment cabal trying to destroy him. And that would be a political calculation. Here's Trey Gowdy, and he just told Rosenstein off here in this soundbite, demanding to see the evidence. What the hell is it? What are you doing up there? Why won't you tell us? Here it is.
He was talking about impeachment within 3 days of special counsel Mueller being appointed. 3 days. That's even quicker than MSNBC and the Democrats were talking about impeaching. Within 3 days, the lead FBI agent is talking about impeaching the president. So this is where we are. More than 60 Democrats have already voted to proceed with impeachment before Bob Mueller has found a single solitary damn thing. We've seen the bias. We need to see the evidence. If you have evidence of wrongdoing by any member of the Trump campaign, present it to the damn grand jury. If you have evidence that this president acted inappropriately, present it to the American people.
He went on to say, wrap it the hell up. They don't want to wrap it up for a host of reasons. Here's Rosenstein replying.
I certainly share your views about those text messages, and nobody is more offended than I about what's reflected in those messages. With regard to the investigation, I've heard suggestions that we should just close the investigation. I think the best thing we can do is finish it appropriately and reach a conclusion. And I certainly agree with you, sir, that people should not jump to conclusions without seeing the evidence.
This guy doesn't say diddly squat to anything. Now, Snerdley, if this depresses you, I can understand it, because this guy, Rosenstein, he's not going to ever answer a single thing. He doesn't know any. He's Inspector Clouseau here, and he's happy to be. We'll be back after this. Whatever you find, concentrated. Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh, half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. We have a couple of more sound bites here, and we're going to be getting to your phone calls in the next half hour, and I'm going to go to a whole bunch of them. I appreciate that you have been on hold for this long. So, Jim Jordan from Ohio accused Rosenstein of withholding information. Rosenstein got on his high horse about that. Jordan said, "Why did you hide the fact that Strzok and Judge Contreras were friends?" FISA judge. "Why did you redact that in the document you gave to us? Judge Contreras is kind of important, a FISA court judge. More importantly, the judge that heard Mike Flynn's case. Why did you try to hide that from us?"
I am the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, okay? I'm not the person doing the redacting. My job is to make sure that we respond to your concerns. We have, sir. Now, I've appointed Mr. Lausch, who is managing that production, and my understanding is it's actually going very well.
Again, I think the House of Representatives is going to say otherwise.
But your use of this to attack me personally.
Why did you? It's not wrong. It's not personal. We just want the information.
Okay, so Rosenstein, I'm not doing the redacting. All I do is run the department. I don't know what's going on here. I employed Clouseau. Clouseau's over there doing the redacting. I think it's going pretty damn well, Congressman. Screw you. And it's pretty damn well you won't give us what we want. Well, I don't mean this is personal attacks on me. We're doing a damn good job up here trying to stonewall you. I mean, give you what you want. And then Jordan's not having any of it. He continued to bore in like this.
Why'd you tell Peter Strzok not to answer our questions yesterday? When I asked Peter Strzok if he'd ever communicated with Glenn Simpson, he gave us the answer he gave us dozens of times. On advice of FBI counsel, I can't answer that question. Why couldn't he answer that question?
Mr. Jordan, I appreciate your sincere concerns, but I didn't give Peter Strzok any instructions. If there was some problem with the instructions he had, I'll be happy to look into it. When you find some problem with a production or with questions, it doesn't mean that I'm personally trying to conceal something from you. It means we're running an organization that's trying to follow the rules.
Why couldn't he answer that question?
Mr. Jordan, I appreciate you saying it isn't personal. Sometimes it feels that way. How do I know, sir? I mean, you interviewed Mr. Strzok. I didn't, so I can't.
Works for you. Doesn't work for us.
There are 115,000 people who work for me.
Right, and I don't know a thing any of them are doing. I'm just a guy sitting here. I don't know what they're doing. I'm not doing the redacting. I'm not talking to lawyers. I haven't told anybody to stonewall you. I don't know what Strzok is telling you, and I don't know what Strzok isn't telling you. I don't know anything. I just run the department. Don't you understand how this bureaucracy works? The people in charge of things don't know diddly squat, Congressman. You mean to tell me you have no power over them? I'm not in charge of it, Congressman. I'm just the guy trying to give you what you wanted. By God, I think we're doing a pretty damn good job of it. And I don't like the way you're personally attacking me. I'm not personally attacking you. I want to know why you are telling Strzok to stonewall. I'm not telling Strzok anything. I don't control anything. I'm the deputy AG. And we're supposed to accept this. I run the department. I got 115,000 people who work for me. You think I know what every one of them are doing? I couldn't begin to tell you. So it is clear that Rosenstein is absolving himself of any involvement or responsibility, and then at the same time claiming that everything's peachy. Now, some might theorize that this is strategic. Why is Rosenstein doing? Have you heard the left and the drive-by saying, if Trump fires Rosenstein, that's impeachable? He can't fire. Of course, Trump can fire anybody anytime he wants, and he doesn't need a reason. Now, some may think that Rosenstein is trying to goad Trump into firing him so that it can trigger some kind of new investigation into Trump. If that's the case, Trump isn't going to fall for it, I don't think. Your phone calls are coming up next.
Now, something new yet familiar to everyone.
Here at the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, we are in Los Angeles. Our telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. And now, thank you for your patience. We head to the phones. We're going to start in Grand Rapids. This is Lon. Great to have you, Lon. How you doing?
Thank you, sir. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to speak to you. I'll get right to my point. Mr. Sturley was very stern. It just amazes me that
whoa, just a second. You said two things. You said Mr. Snerdley was very stern in telling you to get to your point.
Yes, sir.
Was he mean? Was he rude?
Oh, no, sir. He was firm but fair.
Okay. Secondly, what would you have talked about had you not gotten to your point?
Oh, I don't know. We could have talked about all kinds of things, but I like my point. So I guess
each of them has but each of those things you want to talk about has a point. So I mean, you sure. Could have gone anywhere. You just were afraid of being in violation of Mr. Snerdley's sternness. But see,
I'm afraid of violating the agreement I made with Mr. Snerdley. I promised him I would do what he asked, and
here's the thing.
I did it.
Once you begin talking with me, Mr. Sternley's responsibility for you ends.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, so, I mean, there's nothing he can do to you. Maybe he can disconnect the call. I don't know. I don't know what secret systems they have in there, but that wouldn't happen. Okay, so your point is?
Yes, sir. It just amazes me that being under an investigation suddenly precludes.
Did his connection? Are you kidding me? Did we lose this? Did you hang up on this guy? Did you disconnect the call? In a moment of peak, is this how you choose to behave today? I cannot believe. Lon, if you're out there, believe me, I'm like Rosenstein. I have no idea what happened here. I didn't do it. And I hope you don't take this personally. There's a lot of people working for me, and I can't keep track of all of them. Hell, I can't see 90% of them when I'm out here in L.A. What was Mr. Snerdley, what was his point going to be? Let's at least get his point addressed. What was he going to ask me? Okay, he had a good point. Nobody complained when Hillary was under investigation, when she was running for president. Now they want to claim that Trump can't do anything because he's under investigation. It's a good point, except, Lon, remember something. The FBI cleared Hillary Clinton on the 5th of July. Comey went out there and said he listed every crime she committed, and there's a whole bunch of them. And then he said, but we couldn't find where she intended to use a fake server. We couldn't find where she intended to send secret classified stuff to President Obama. And he replied, we couldn't find where she intended for any of this, and therefore no reasonable prosecutor, and that's all we have here are reasonable prosecutors, would ever charge her. And so we're not. Well, we learned that the Hillary Clinton case had been dealt with. She'd been exonerated even before her interview. So in truth, she wasn't under investigation, at least not after July 5th. But it still is a good point. Even if, let's say this, even if Comey had not done the July 5th presser, and even if he had not exonerated, if she had remained under investigation, there wouldn't have been a soul of the Democrat Party saying that she should be disqualified and we should go get Crazy Bernie. There wouldn't have been a soul. So your point about them being hypocrites is valid. The thing about that is that hypocrisy never seems to attach to these people. It never punishes them. So it's nice to note it, but it never has any practical impact. Jay in DeKalb, Illinois, you're next. It's great to have you here. Hello.
Thanks, Rich. Major dose to you, sir. I wanted to get your opinion on, I've listened to some of the liberal radio this morning, just enjoying their meltdowns. And they're going on and on about how Trump, the new justice, is going to turn over Roe v. Wade. And one person said he was going to turn over Brown versus the Board of Education. Do you feel, I know, it's just ridiculous. Do you feel like that they're trying to stir real physical attacks? Just to go out and really attack, just like the guy did at the softball practice last year. Look at what Waters had said, about accost these people at every turn.
Now, that's your latter part of that question really makes this intriguing. My first answer to you is that this is real. They are genuinely upset. When you hear this guy say, my God, they're going to overturn Roe versus Wade and Brown versus Board of Education, they are living that fear. They're not trying to incite people other than each other, but they're really trying to just send signals of recognition to each other. They believe all of this. Look, all of this stuff exists because Roe versus Wade, for example. Here's the truth of it, folks. Roe versus Wade is the law of the land because of a Supreme Court decision, not because the elected representatives of the people have voted on it. Have you ever noticed that abortion is not anywhere near the cultural or political issue in the UK that it is here? You know why? They voted on it in the UK. In the House of Commons, they voted on it. The representatives of the people there had their debates, became the law of the land. This was the result of a Supreme Court decision. A bunch of people wearing black robes decided that killing a baby in a womb is constitutional. Well, there's a lot of people say, it isn't in there, Judge. There's nowhere in the Constitution says that you can take the life of a baby in a womb. I don't care how you can structure it as a woman's right to choose. None of that's in there. So the issue remains quite controversial. The left knows this. They're running around scared to death that this could be overturned on the grounds that it's unconstitutional. All you need is a different court makeup, somebody to bring the case back, and if another court theoretically could find that the previous ruling was unconstitutional. Not that, if that happens, the ruling will not be specifically about abortion. It'll be about the Constitution, which is what this should be about in the first place. The Constitution does not say that only women can decide what to do with their body. I mean, we have laws against prostitution. We have laws against any number of things that only women can do. To say that women should have the right to do with their body whatever they want has been a popularly accepted cultural thing, but it's nowhere in the Constitution. So if a new court with a majority of justices who think the 73 ruling should be vacated because it's unconstitutional, should happen, the left is going to think the court has come along and made abortion illegal, which is not what the ruling will be. But they know it's tenuous precisely because of what I just said. It hangs in the balance. They've invested all of this in having a majority of judges on a court. And whenever that majority is threatened, then they get panic. Their panic is real here. Now, the second part of your question, you talked about Scalise getting shot at Republican baseball practice and Maxine Waters. Is all of this hysteria, is it designed to create similar actions against Republicans and Trump and whoever in order to intimidate Republicans from not changing what liberals consider to be established constitutional law? Maybe. I frankly, I don't think they would have to try to do that. We've already got the evidence that they're inspiring people to do that. I mean, the guy did shoot Steve Scalise. He shot up at a bunch of Republicans at that baseball practice. Why? Who inspired him to do that? Where did he get the idea? What panicked him so much he thought he had to do that? That restaurant owner at the Red Hen that sees Sarah Sanders in there and they panic. Oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And they got to get her out of there. Where does this come from? And let's go back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, 28-year-old millennial, dyed in the wool Marxist, not progressive. And the Democrat Party is a little uneasy over this. I think, well, where did she learn this stuff? Yeah, she's from Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico's socialist, but where did she learn this stuff? This is the kind of stuff that's being taught in middle school now, in high school. Of course, it's being taught in college, maybe in her home, but this stuff is learned. Where is it being learned? These people are not organically this way. It's the result of deep impressions having been made, and the left is responsible for having made these impressions. The left is an entirely radical organization, and they exaggerate everything. They go overboard in order to make their points, and you get these young, impressionable skulls full of mush in a classroom hearing this stuff, and they soak it up, like this 28-year-old candidate in Queens has done. And now it's their problem to deal with as some of the chickens come home to roost. It's typical with all exaggeration. A lot of people exaggerate on purpose to make the point, to shock you, to make you really get it. But they don't intend you to take them literally all the time. Well, the problem is that these skulls full of mush leftists are taking all of these influencers literally and then some. And they're getting lost in all of it. So I don't think they need to come up with a strategy designed to make radical leftists violent. That is organically happening. And I do think it's going to continue because they've got no recourse. They don't trust votes. Whenever a vote goes against them is illegitimate. The only way these people think they can prevail is with the use of force. Intimidation. You have to back down. You have to give in and give up to let them have what they want. You have to not show up and vote, or you have to be so afraid of them that you'll not say what they don't want to hear. You won't go where they don't want you to go. You'll believe what they want you to believe, and you will love it. And if you don't, they're going to continue to try to intimidate you. But they're not interested in achieving this stuff by winning elections. That's icing on the cake if they can. But when they lose, look, they lost the presidential race. Look at them. It's illegitimate. It doesn't count. That was stolen from us. This is not the way it was supposed to be. Where does the mentality come from in 2004 that John Kerry actually won because of the exit polls? The votes were illegitimate. The exit polls were accurate. They believe this stuff. This has been one of the themes. I went to the Media Research Center annual gala. I was the keynote speaker last year's, and it was this year's, this spring, and they play clips of all the outrageous, hilarious, irresponsible liberal quotes from TV, media, and everywhere, and everybody laughs themselves silly. So when I got out there to make my speech, I said, yeah, it is funny, but folks, they believe it. You got to understand they believe this stuff. They're not just flapping their gums. And as such, it makes them dangerous. You have to take this stuff seriously. I've learned over the course of this program, laughing at this stuff, someday You laugh at it thinking nobody could possibly believe this. Then one day you wake up and you find out 30% of the country does. You think we're going insane. But the real problem is they cannot accept losing a duly constituted fair election. That already is illegitimate. They get what they want via the use of force. They maintain it via the use of force, intimidation, bullying, or what have you. Nothing I see is going to make them stop behaving like that.
Doing the work that the mainstream American media just...
Okay, audio soundbites. Grab number 10. This is Jeffrey Toobin. Had a meltdown yesterday afternoon on CNN after the announcement of Justice Kennedy was announced.
You are going to see 20 states pass laws banning abortion outright. Just banning abortion. Because they know that there are now going to be 5 votes on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. And abortion will be illegal in a significant part of the United States in 18 months. There is just no doubt about that. Roe v. Wade is doomed. It is gone because Donald Trump won the election and because he's going to have the chance to appoint 2 Supreme Court justices.
See this? It's over. It's already gone. How can it be this tenuous? How can something constitutional be this tenuous? Well, the answer is it isn't, and they know it. Roe versus Wade is new. Before we even have the nominee, what if Trump decides to nominate somebody who is pro-life or pro-choice? We don't know, folks. We don't know what the strategy is going to be here to get somebody confirmed. We really don't have any idea yet. The odds are it won't be somebody who's pro-choice, but we don't know. Susan Collins, who's a Republican vote that the Democrats are counting on opposing any Trump nominee, is saying, my number one requirement for, my number one requirement, she speaks very slow, is precedent. That's what a judge must respect precedent. That's code lingo for whoever comes up there better not want to tamper with Roe versus Wade. That's what she means by precedent. But yet, here's Toobin. It's over. It's over because a bunch of states out there are going to say it's illegal because they think the court will back them up. I'm telling you that if this ever does come up, if Roe versus Wade if it ever does appear before the Supreme Court again, it's going to be on the basis of whether or not the 1973 court ruling was constitutional, which is what the Supreme Court today says that it does. It's decided to make that role one of its primary purposes, all the way back in Marbury versus Madison. Now, there may be an abortion case that comes up on the sheer tenets of the medical practice itself and whether or not it's lawful or not. But I would think that the constitutionality of the 73 ruling would be what would have to be overturned. But I need to speak with legal beagles. That could be wrong, but that's just my instinct. What I find fascinating is they already think it's over. The left, it's over. And they can only think that if they know how tenuous it is. And it also must be that they know that it is not something a majority of the American people, a big majority, approve of. They've got to know that they're governing against the will of the American people on a lot of stuff.
The center of the radio universe. Right.